And it says we're live. Let's see if anybody
We're
joins
live.
us. How exciting.
It's exciting.
If anybody can see us, come in and say hello in the chat.
Hello.
Not you. I'm looking over in the corner to see if Emma's still loading, apparently. But this will be thrilling viewing for anybody who's not watching live and watches back later. Can anybody hear us? Are you out there? Say hello in the chat. We have a Richard. Hello, Richard. Thank you for joining us.
Good.
Emma is doing a technology fail, but I think we're fine. Thank you very much. Right, brilliant. One viewer so far. Maybe we'll get a few more. So even if nobody...
Maybe don't quote the numbers if they're embarrassing. Just pretend that there's hundreds and thousands out there and we'll just keep talking.
I mean, that seems pretty unlikely considering that so far the YouTube channel has 2 videos and they're both relating to the Tranquility. One was the Kickstarter campaign video and the other was the night and day variant that I filmed. So I think we got 5 subscribers from those. So it'd be impressive if we turned that into thousands. Yeah, anyway, welcome guys. Thank you for joining me. And yeah, like James said, if this is a bit of fun and people like it and turn up and ask questions, then we can do these more often. Be nice to have a studio and actually meet in person and do this one day. We'll have to see about that.
Would.
So yeah, I should welcome my 2 guests. Well, for starters, I'm Peter Hazelwood. I run Board Game Hub. And then in the top left for me, I assume that's the same for everybody, is James Emmerson, amazing designer of Tranquility and 2 more upcoming Board Game Hub games. We've got Lily Pads, which is a little print and play that we'll be getting on Kickstarter soon. And then working title of Tessera, which is a very nice 2 to 4 player domino style game that we are putting a sort of a nice Roman mosaic theme to. So say hello to the nice people. We've got Matt Warwick also here from the Offline Gamer podcast. Hi, Matt. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
And then star guest, big unveiling, is Robert Elliott, the designer of another upcoming game. We've got a few of those. Void Zone, the amazing arena knockout game, which is, for me, the elimination game for people who don't like elimination games.
That's a good description.
Thank you.
Yes, so that, a tentative plan for Void Zone is that is coming on to Kickstarter, hopefully Q1 of 2021. I mean, who knows what the world state will be in at that situation, but that's the plan. So we'll have Lily Pads, and then we'll have Tessera. That's probably the name we're going with, and then we've got Void Zone coming up as well. And then who knows after that? Many more possibilities. The world is full of great designers, it seems to me anyway. So, kick us off, Matt and Richard, and anybody else watching. Do please ask any questions. But I'll kick us off by asking James to talk a little bit about the origins of Tranquility and how it came about.
Okay. So let's see. I teach, so I have kind of blocked holidays, and then blocks of definitely no holidays, and so I was sat in the house on my own as my wife was working, and I was messing around with a 6-nimp deck, which is, for those who don't know, is a deck of 1 to 104 cards, and it's a very, very versatile little deck that you can play loads and loads of different games with, and I was searching what I could do with it, and I came across a unusual solo variant for a game called, I think it was Paycal, possibly, from 1980s, 1990s, something like that. Anyway, in that you were building a pyramid, and I think in the solo version I started building 2 pyramids because it was too easy, and then I started warping the pyramids into a grid, and then it was still too easy, so I came up with this idea of discarding adjacent cards for the difference between the cards, and suddenly within sort of like an hour we had sort of I'd say about 90% of Tranquility. It started with the working title Hush because, well, I was playing solo at first, and I realised actually this will be even better if I can just split this deck into 5 different people or 3 different people. And it started with the working title of Hush because it's played in silence. So at that point, we had 100 cards, and I was playing it with friends, and it was still fairly easy. And a friend of mine, Peter probably doesn't know this, but a friend of mine said, he said, I've got a theme for your game. I said, all right. He said, what about Around the World in 80 Days? And I was like, yes, because I'm trying to make this game harder by making the grid into a 7x7, and it was taking up the whole table. And I thought, what I need to be doing is making the deck smaller. So we trimmed the cards down to 80, and my mum, bless her, did a load of artwork for Around the World in 80 Days, which I don't think you'll ever have seen, Peter. And I totally disregarded it and continued to call it Hush.
I need to see this. I think we should publicize that artwork. Maybe auction it.
Well, I'll send it across. I'll send it across someday, and you can have a look. So yeah, we play tested it, and the finished cards and the start cards and the various expansions and variants kind of came up. And then I met Peter at the speed dating, the designer speed dating at the UK Games Expo last year, actually. And I pitched it to several publishers, and Peter got in touch fairly shortly afterwards, and that was it, really. We took it from there. We got Tristan Rossin on board, who designed the artwork for Tranquility. It was still being called Hush at that point, and we asked him very loosely to do some sort of like optical illusions. And Tristan came back with these amazing like islands that were reflected in the water, and these beautiful little animals where they're awake in the day and asleep in the night. And we liked it so much, and we decided, well, we really need to be sailing around these islands. We need to look at possibly changing the name, and so we decided to call the ship Tranquility, and the rest is history, I think. Have I missed anything?
No, that's pretty good. I was going to, again, I think I've said this to you before. Oh, have I lost sound? Can you guys still hear me?
Just for a second, but you're back.
Oh, right. What's confusing me is that the video is about 20 seconds behind the the audio, so that's a bit off-putting. Yes. So the way that the speed dating event works at the expo is this brilliant idea. And when it works in person, you have a big room, and you basically invite applications from all the designers out there, and they send a sales sheet and a rules summary to the expo. And the expo collate it all together and send it to the interested publishers, who then review these and make a short list of 3, the 3 games that they really want to see. And then when you turn up to the to the speed dating from the publisher's perspective, as I was doing it, you go into this room and there's 16 or 18 tables, something ridiculous, and each of these is sat a designer or 2 co-designers, whatever. And you have 16 or 18 publishers, how many it was, and they are all sat at each of these tables, and the designer gets 4 minutes to pitch their game, and the publisher gets 1 minute to ask questions after that, and then everybody moves around. And so you have the designer, poor things, doing this pitch 16 times in a row, and the publishers are trying to concentrate for 16 different pitches. It's like a whirlwind. So the interesting thing is that I have to confess that Hush was not on my shortlist of 3, which kind of proves the difficulty of reviewing a game just on paper. It's really different to somebody sitting down in front of you and explaining it and showing the cards to you and whatever. And so then you showed me the cards, you explained the concept, and afterwards Hush was the game I was most excited about. And so by the time I arranged to meet you the next day, you'd already given your 2 prototypes away, hadn't you?
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So I mean, you had some interest from bigger publishers, which is good. But anyway, somehow I convinced you to join me on a bit of a journey. First time publisher, first time designer, and and it became Tranquility. So you'd have to say it's gone pretty well. I'm not saying that the whole thing has been absolutely perfect. Some backers are still waiting on their games, and I do apologise for that. But
an international pandemic didn't help. Let's put it that way.
it hasn't helped, no. But the feedback for the product and for people who've played the game has been superb, and it really cheers us up, doesn't it, when we see the comments on the Kickstarter page or on Board Game Geek or on Facebook, whatever, and it makes it all worthwhile. And so I have learnt a huge deal doing this. And I guess, James, you've also learnt a bit about game development and how publishing works, and we've sort of gone through this together, haven't we?
We have.
So that's been very interesting.
But
So
I think it could have gone worse.
oh yeah, it could have gone
On
worse.
reflection.
I mean, we funded well, and the obviously success can breed success, but it also makes problems. So we thought we might be manufacturing 1,000 or 2 of these things, and we've ended up with 5,000, and then 700 playmats we got made. For about 600 of those were orders through the Kickstarter, and that's crazy. It was so much more than the indications were.
The original idea with the playmats, I seem to remember you saying, "Oh, we'll just get 1 or 2 for demoing, to make it easier for us, and we'll see about whether or not they're viable afterwards. I might get a few just to sell in conventions." And then,
oh gosh, I don't remember that.
It's just spiraled out of control.
I mean, this is the thing that people always comment. So at AirCon we had the game and we had the playmats, and obviously we demoed the game with the playmats, and so there were comments suggesting that we were rather devious with our marketing. I could tell you, for starters, I don't have a devious bone in me really, and I'm not a marketer, but the playmats were so nice, so we're like, well, it makes the setup very quick and it sets it all off very nicely, so we did it, and then people were playing it and saying, we can't not buy the playmat because it's too nice,
Yeah.
So it came across as a marketing. It was accidental marketing, really. But yeah, we're thrilled with how popular they are, and and that's really exciting. And we have some news to share in a few weeks' time. Basically, there've been a couple of licensing deals signed, but we'll not tease any more on that. It'll just mean that there will be some language versions elsewhere around the world, so that'll be very good. Proper announcement to follow on that. So let's. So we've had some comments. So Karen is being complimentary about the artwork, and it's fun to play. Well, thank you. And Tyler says it really is an awesome game that hits a good gateway market. Yeah, and that's an interesting one because it does. It's very accessible. We've played it with pretty young players. We've got 8 and up on the box, but I think we've had younger than that who have kind of handled it well. And just young families, non-gamers and gamers alike seem to appreciate it. That's not saying it's for everybody, but it is an interesting game in terms of its appeal is quite wide. So yes, it is a good gateway game, but also some gamers seem to like it. So yeah, that's always pleasing.
I think I'm incapable of creating sort of complex, heavier game. It's a good job you got Robert, because I'm fortunate and unfortunate in that I don't have a regular gaming group, really. So most of my gaming is with my family, and so most of my games are family games. So I seemingly only design family games.
You design what you know. I think
for now at least.
This is going to be the case for anybody.
That's it, isn't it? You design what you know, exactly.
There are
all the experience to help.
Oh yes, no,
So
absolutely.
A bit more for the gamers.
You're absolutely right.
Yes, yeah, that's true. And we did try during development to create some sort of separate ideas to give it a bit more depth, essentially, and to mix it up. So once you think you've mastered it, you can throw in something else, and you'd have to approach it in a completely different way. So one of our first playtesters, Jason, way back at The Great Indoors, and he played it once. He said, "Yeah, it's all right." He said, "But I like to feel up against it in my co-op games. I like to feel like I've got my back against the wall." And I was like, "Right, okay, we'll try this." And he played the Stormy Seas variant. He said, "Yeah, this is the way I want to play it." So it's good that it can appeal to different people depending on how you set it up. I think.
Yes,
it's got that in its favour.
That's Board Game Hub demoer and Great Indoor supporter Jacob Bell. So a bit of a shout out for Jacob, being really good for us. Appreciate his help. Yes. So let's bring in Robert, talking about the origins of Void Zone and how it's come about.
Well, it was originally called Jolt back in the day. It was an idea I had in the middle of the night. Hadn't been thinking about designing a game at all, and well, I had been playing a lot of Santorini and really enjoyed it. And however, my wife wasn't such a big fan of it. But just one night, I just woke up, ideas in my head, had to get up and write it down, and wrote it all down on a wee piece of paper. My wife actually had got up to feed the children the bottle, and she thought I was leaving her because I was writing notes in the middle of the night. So about 90% of the game was just done, just in my head as I woke up.
I love that's how the first thing that she jumped to was, oh, he must be leaving.
Yeah, no, Olivia wasn't sleeping very well at the time, I think so. But yeah, it's been about 2 years in development, and it's come a long way. I was at the expo with it last year. Went to the playtesting hub. Got about 3 hours of playing in there. It was really good. Graphically, it didn't look very good back then. Well, it's been a real learning experience for me with Photoshop and whatnot. So, but yeah, game design's been very good for me, just for kind of doing all that kind of stuff, for learning new skills and all that stuff. But yeah, I pitched it then to Peter about October time last year,
Yeah.
and then Peter said, "I don't think I'm going to like this."
Yeah, I'm a brilliant judge.
So he said, "You don't think it's for you at all?" But then we remember we played it on Tabletopia and had a good time, and then it's come a fair way since then, and we've Peter's been brilliant, just ideas, new ideas, fresh ideas, all this kind of stuff, and I think the game as it is now, 6 months on from that, or 8 months, whatever we are, and it's been so much better, such a much better game now, and it's actually one of my favorite games to play. And
yeah, it somehow comes across a bit as arrogant, doesn't it? But but I love playing it. It's a game I'm pretty bad at, honestly, but I always enjoy it.
It's such a fun time, though. I mean, Tranquility. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy Tranquility. But it's, you sit down and you're thinking about what you're going to do. Whereas I always find Void Zone to encourage a bit of table talk, a bit of banter, and you've got the, as people sort of realise that they're in sticky situations or that you can take advantage of something. It's such a fun, really fun game to play, because it does encourage that kind of like that conversation. I find anyway. Even we had a game the other day that went on a bit longer than some of the average ones, and I still really enjoyed it. And we played the team mode as well, where it was 2 against 2, and just encouraging that kind of rivalry. Just I'm in absolute awe of you, Robert, to create something so well. It's so in depth, but it's streamlined. But in comparison to my games, it's got that sort of those tactical nuances and depth, I guess is the word I'm looking for, as opposed to some of my sort of more simplistic designs.
Yeah, I guess it was like probably because I played a lot of Santorini. I kind of wanted something a wee bit more, with more variety and depth, even though you do have a lot of god powers. But I kind of felt that just whenever you're just moving one space and building, I kind of thought, oh, I'd like to do a wee bit more in my turn, so I kind of wanted a bit more, and that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, it is. It's a bit like Santorini, but with more options, and with this really sort of tense knockout that comes, and the board shrinking as well. The fact that the board shrinks just ramps up the tension all the way through the game. I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like it's initially really tense, isn't it? It's just, and then whenever the drain rate goes up, once one person gets knocked out,
which is my favorite part of the game.
It's really, really enjoy that. So,
yeah, definitely.
So yes, it's got an interesting. So when I said it was an elimination game for players who don't like elimination, it's got a really nice tempo to the game. with a slight issue which we are hopefully fixing. This is one of the things that you pick up in the play testing, particularly with higher player games. You've got a bigger board and you've got more of a risk of this arena splintering into 2, 3, or even 4 little islands of areas. And it's not conducive for an interesting ending. But without that problem, which hopefully we're ironing out, it's got a really nice, it ramps up so quickly towards the end, because pieces are coming off the board so quickly that one false move and you're out. So you've got to be really, really tactical, clever about it.
It doesn't suffer from player elimination like a lot of player elimination games do, because if you are eliminated, usually it's towards the end of the game, and things have got to such a boiling point that you are so invested that you're not going to leave your seat anyway. You want to see how this is going to play out. It's not going to take long, because by the time someone's eliminated, everything starts moving at double pace. The drain rate doubles, and it's usually got to a point where you just want to sit and see who's going to win. It's a bit like Bang the Dice game or something like that, where by the time somebody's eliminated, you're usually quite a way into the game, and everybody I've played with has stayed seated just to see who's going to battle it out in the final phases of the game. So it's not, as Peter said at the very beginning, it's a player elimination game for people who don't like player elimination games, which I think is a great description.
Yeah.
So we've had
there's nothing worse than playing a 5-hour game and having to sit out the last 3 hours of it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's one thing.
And even things like Werewolves, which we play a lot of, whoever goes out first is then sat there for like 10 rounds whilst everybody else is playing.
I think part of the issue with those kinds of games, even if they don't have elimination and it's a long game, you can effectively be out of the running, as you say, 2 or 3 hours into a 5-hour game. And that's probably not really any more fun than actually being eliminated. So it's one of the things that you've been looking at, Robert, isn't it? People have said, can you get rid of the elimination? And, you showed me a playing mode where maybe you earned points or things like that as a way of judging how it was played. And it didn't work. It's a brilliant game.
Didn't feel as tense.
No, absolutely. And you've got to maneuver around this shrinking arena, and you've got to deal with that. And that's the brilliance of the game for me, is that dynamic.
It's one of the only player elimination games where I really enjoy the player elimination. A lot of the tension comes from the fact that you're worried you're going to be kicked out. But it doesn't detract from the enjoyment, because everything ramps up after somebody goes out, and the game starts moving at double speed, and you want to stay and find out who wins, and it's almost as enjoyable to watch and continue with the sort of the oh, you're in trouble now sort of table talk that it generates. So
yeah, and even one of the things I tried to, because even when you lose, you start the game with 2 robots, and one of the things I wanted to do, just to make it a dynamic game as well, you use one robot each turn, and the next turn use the other robot. So once you lose a robot, you get to use the same robot every turn. So you're never, even though you've lost a robot, you're still not at a disadvantage, because you get to move your single robot twice as much. You're very hard to catch.
I think it's a really subtle catch-up mechanic as well. Once you've lost one, you're almost at a slight advantage in that you are more you can maneuver more easily than everybody else on the board. It's smart.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to bring up the fact that it's not, if you lose your robot first, you're out of the game. It happens all the time, that particularly in a higher player game, or even in the 2-player game, lose one of yours, gain that extra flexibility, moving the same robot every time. Yeah, you're still in the game, and you can win from having lost one first. And I think that's I don't know if how much of that was deliberate design, but it's brilliant. That's really clever.
Well, we had the game of the day where we were playing the team game, and it was one against 3. It was 1 against 3.
That was so embarrassing.
And it was so but beautiful tension, great game arc, in terms of one person turning it around, pulling it back from a really, really difficult position, and yeah, I mean, you don't get that without the player elimination. You don't get the I'm 1 against 3, I haven't got a chance, but pulled it around and won it. And it was a cracking game. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So, a couple of questions to catch up on. Lovely, nice sarcasm from Matt. Why does the playmat not fit in the box? I think this is in reference to, well, obviously Tranquility, but
Yeah,
yes, many questions about how the playmats would be shipped and why they didn't fit in the box. And I completely understand wanting all of your game inside the box, but when you've got effectively an 8 centimeter square cube. um, and then a playmat that folds out to 72 centimeters square. It doesn't really fit, even if you didn't have the cards in. That doesn't really fit. So yeah, we had a lot of those questions. I think people maybe didn't quite appreciate how cute and small the box is. But
yeah. I love the key boxes, but I think they've caused some difficulty during production, haven't they?
They have.
But I've got nothing else like it. But you said last time I said that you said that, yeah, there might be a good reason why nobody else has produced boxes and cubes.
It certainly provides some challenges, yes, and yeah, I mean. The good thing is that if I did pull the plug, and let's say we did another print run in the future, and we didn't do cubes, then at least the Kickstarter backers have got this lovely unique product, and there it is, and it's yeah, but we'll see about that. We also had a question from Richard, which is how much of an advantage is it to pitch a new game design face to face, where the publisher can see the prototype in front of them? And so yeah, well, that's exactly what I was saying about Tranquility. So I'll talk again about the speed dating. So this year, obviously, we're not meeting at the expo in person, but they've been doing some nice events via Zoom. So we still had the speed dating, and it was over 2 nights, and we had each designer with 5 minutes to do their pitch and 5 minutes to answer questions to all of the publishers. So much nicer on the designer. They only have to do their pitch once. And then you've got the advantage of that they were sharing their screens, they had nice videos, or they just put the camera and showed the product to you, almost in person, as it were. And yeah, it's a huge advantage, I think, to both designer and publisher. Just considering something on paper is really, really difficult to judge. So one of the things I wanted to do, and I've set up the website, is anybody can submit their game, and we have a game submission form, and that's how Robert submitted his game. And we're actually, I would say I'm getting at least one a week now, so we're getting a lot of submissions, which is brilliant, and you're seeing lots of different kinds of games. Without being mean, there's the odd one that comes in, and you can tell after a couple of minutes, not necessarily that it's a bad game, but this isn't one that I am going to be able to publish. So that's not great for the designer, I suppose. But I always give feedback as to why this might not be for me, and it could just boil down to I like the look of this, I would play it, but we've already got 3 games in the pipeline. I couldn't physically publish this anyway right now. So face to face, yeah, it makes a difference. But that being said, so Richard is another person who filled in a submission. I mean, he did get in touch prior to do the submission just to ask some questions, which was fine. And I could quite quickly tell with that one, it's a good game. Again, I haven't said to Richard that I will publish it. It's big, it's deep. There's a number of components, and you need to be sure before publishing, because I could sign Richard to a contract now, 2 years down the line, I haven't published anything at all, and he's lost 2 years of his life. And that's unfortunately one of the possible downsides of being a designer. You are fully in the power of the publisher. I hope it goes without saying that wouldn't be something I would do. If I signed up a game and then came to realize over time that, this isn't going to work, I'd either just break the contract or I'd try and send it on to somebody else. So so sometimes you can get a pitch and you say, yeah, that's good, I want to take a closer look at this, and then we'll obviously at the moment you'd play it over Tabletopia or Tabletop Simulator. But I would definitely say it's an advantage being able to do it face to face, and I suppose that's the beauty of the original format of the speed dating. You've got your game. So the one that really stands out from last year is Denham, and he was showing off Dice Cruise. and he and I think it was Kane, they were dressed up as, captains. They'd got fake champagne and snacks as if we were on the cruise, and it was just such a brilliant
Oh,
pitch. They're real showmen, and that doesn't surprise me because I know Denham is an actor, so they took advantage of that face-to-face scenario, and they really made the most of it. They made it stick out in our mind, and so that was the pitch I most remember.
I remember setting up. We were the only two tables in the room, and I was setting up my silent cooperative game on the table on my own, and those two were donning their sailors' hats and
Yeah.
pouring glasses of prosecco, and I was thinking, oh heck, I might have underplayed this a little bit.
I mean, that's it. If you can create a good impression, however you're doing it, it's going to help. But when it boils down to it, hopefully the game speaks for itself, and that's exactly what I did with Robert and Jolt, as it was. On paper, I thought this doesn't sound like a game for me. That doesn't mean I'm not going to publish it, but I don't think it's one that I'll enjoy particularly because it's got player elimination. It's a kind of spatial puzzle. I really struggle because I can't visualize. So I can't easily look at a board and say, okay, what's it going to look like in 3 turns? If Robert does that and James does that, is my robot going off the board? I struggle with that. But I saw enough of it in that pitch to say, okay, Robert, show me the game. I don't think it's for me, but we'll take a look. He showed me the game, we've played it, and I loved it. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think sometimes you don't get a feel for a game until you sit down and play it. You can read the rules and you can think, oh yeah, I think I can see how this is going to play out, but sometimes you don't get a feel, of what kind of atmosphere it generates until you sit down and actually give it a try.
Absolutely. Are you still there, Robert?
I am, yes, yeah, I can.
Okay, wonderful. I'm going to leave the room for 30 seconds to get my charger, and I will be back. You can fill the silence if you wish.
That's very kind, isn't it? Just land us in it. Go on, Robert, what were you going to say?
Say what we want about Peter now.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I never liked him in the first place. I don't know about you.
Well, if there's only one person watching.
Oh, is that's okay then. I'll less panic.
So many games have you got in your collection?
Too many. We're moving house at the minute, and I'm putting them all in boxes. And I've just finished box number 3, and scarcely made a dent on the shelf. And I'm thinking I probably have too many games. We're just shy of the 500 mark, I think, now. Dr. Murray.
Really? Wow.
Wow. Too many is the answer. I'm trying to offload some. Not doing very well at it, but
we're only at about 50. But part of my problem is I'm on that board game trading and chat website, and every day it's like, oh, I need this. I need it.
Yeah, every day is a restraint, isn't it? It's like, no, I don't need it. Yeah, and I joined that because I know Peter uses it as a really useful resource for picking the brains of lots of gamers, but it tests my resolve on a daily basis. We're talking about board game trading and chat, which is your T-shirt, I think.
Yes, it
is. That Games Expo T-shirt?
No, it is Board Game Trading and Chat, the best Facebook group.
Yeah, and we're just saying how it's a daily temptation to resist all the shiny games that get posted on there.
I mean, Adele, my wife, she wasn't on. She's not really. Well, she enjoys games, but she's not really a gamer. But she joined the group just maybe more to keep an eye on me, on my spending, and she's actually ended up spending more than me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's addictive.
Yeah, we worked out a few years ago when I was starting to get into modern games that I needed some way of having a budget or something like that, because otherwise you could just spend heaps of money and didn't have it. So still don't have loads and loads of money at the moment. So I find it very very useful that I use PayPal, and whatever's in there I can spend on games. If there isn't any money in there, I've got to sell something first before I buy something else. And yet that temptation is still always there. So a couple of months back, I had a lovely big amount in there because I'd sold a few games and I hadn't bought anything. And then I've bought 3 or 4 games and I'm back down to 0, and I still want to buy more.
Yeah, it's the promise, I think, of a board game that's the difficulty. It's the fact that because you haven't played it, or I mean, you might have played it, but if you haven't played it, it's the promise that it might be the best thing you've ever played. You don't know until you buy it and open the box, and it's you're reading the rules and you're looking at the reviews and people going, oh yeah, I really enjoyed this, and you're thinking this could be, one of the best games I've got. And until you actually buy it and play it, you can't tell, So
Always on the
you
lookout for a
naturally have
better
to buy
game.
it just to find out. And then in my case, inevitably, I think, oh yeah, that was pretty good. I think I'll keep that one. But not one of the best, but it was good enough to keep around, and so it just gets added to the shelf and sits there along with all the others.
Yeah, and that's even before coronavirus. It still depresses me when I look at my shelf and I go, oh, I've got these wonderful games and I'm not playing them. You've got so many, and how often. I mean, I've got a couple of favorites at the moment that are getting a lot of plays, but that just means everything else is getting ignored.
Well, I envy you, Peter, because I look at your collection and think, oh, at least he plays his sort of like a dozen times before he moves them on. I could count on one hand the number of games that I've got that have been played a dozen times because I've got so many that they've all been played a handful, and if or not at all. So I've probably got as many games unplayed as I have played. It's a dire situation. We should move the conversation on.
Good idea.
If you needed to donate them.
Robert, I don't think you need any more. So, got a couple of questions from Richard. Unfortunately, we've slightly missed the boat on one. Whilst he's away, what's it really like working with Peter? You can answer that now. I could put the headphones down, but I always encourage openness and honesty. Even if people don't like what they're seeing, I always try to tell it how it is. So yeah, you've been very nice so far, James. What's been the good and the challenging sides of working with me?
Are you keeping the headphones on?
I
am. Okay. I think the very best thing about publishing with you is the fact that you are guaranteed to be not only involved in the project from beginning to end, but valued. I say that because it's not a case of you telling me, okay, we're going to take this direction. I thought we might do this with the artwork. It's very much I had this idea. What do you think? Let's talk it through. Do you want to go in a different direction? Are you happy with this? And I don't have any other experience to compare it to because I've not published with anybody else. But I would have thought that's quite a rare thing. I very much feel with all the games that we've got in the works, and Tranquility in particular, that it is everything I could possibly have hoped for, and it's very much a realization of what I hoped my game could be. I don't feel in any way, and I can't ever think that it would happen that I would submit a game to Peter and publish through Peter, and the game itself to turn out to be something that I didn't want it to be in any way, be that artwork or gameplay or whatever. I just, I think you're very good at challenging me to make it better and bringing out the best of what the game can be, which is part of the process. But it will only develop into what we want it to develop into. It's never going to be taken out of my hands, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make. And I value that more than anything, I think. I can sit back at the end and say, yes, that's my game. I've developed it with Peter, I've developed it with all these people, but that's my game, and that's how I wanted it to, what I wanted it to become. And there's none of this swooping and going, yeah, I like the idea of this, and then the publisher coming back with, this is what we're going to do, this is the theme that it's going to be. We've play tested it, we've developed it so that we've taken this rule out, and we're going to do this, that, and the other, and we're going to market it like this. It's a two-way process. You're kept involved all the way through, and I think that's the best the best part of it.
Thank you. It almost sounds like I posed that question and then was just like, give me the compliments. That wasn't what I was going for, but I mean, so you say,
Sorry, did you want the challenges?
oh yeah, I
Because they're
mean,
going to take twice as long.
yeah, no, go
No.
for it.
I think part of the challenges are the flip of the positives, in that because it's a small company, we've got to work that bit harder to get the reach that big companies get so much more easily. So I knew that signing up, but trying not to flip this into a positive. But you've managed to do so much more with it than I expected. You know, we've got so much. We've sold. The Kickstarter went better than we expected, for starters. The teasers that you've kind of given in terms of getting different language editions was more than I anticipated in terms of getting it into different markets. I don't want to say too much. So that is a challenge for you that's turned out better than I anticipated when I first signed for you.
Fair
I
enough.
don't know whether that counts as a challenge, but that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I certainly struggle with, and potentially is not your forte either, is the visual side of things. You know,
Definitely.
the way that you approach your design, and there's no right or wrong way to approach design, is starting with the mechanics, and then we work out, is there a theme that fits with this? How do we adapt it to that? And actually, that's been really interesting. So, when we've been developing Tessera, we've just got Rory Muldoon on board to do the artwork, and he is not only an artist, but he's also got a game design already signed up with Elliott Games. So he's looking at the theme, he's looking at the game, and he's saying, okay, we're not going to paste on a theme here. Let's find a theme that works with it, and then you adapt the game to work better with the theme. And so this is definitely something I struggle with. And so it's challenging, I think, for the pair of us to get to that point on our own. And of course, nobody can be good at everything, or not many people are anyway. But yeah, that's definitely something I struggle with, and it's probably a challenge of the publishing as it is, because it is, as you say, it's effectively me and then the designers and whoever we've got playtesting. That is the sum total.
That's it. Yeah, I think we've benefited a lot from having very talented artists, and artists who were prepared to talk over with us kind of what we were trying to envision. As you said, we're both not necessarily visual people. I design for mechanics rather than from theme, currently at least. So we were, trying to find how we want it to look visually, and we've benefited from having really talented, expert people who can bring it to life for us. So far, touch wood.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
I'm going to bring Robert in here, and
yeah, go for it.
I think there's going to be some, if we're absolutely brutally honest, I think one of the challenges I've certainly felt, and I'm certain that Robert has felt this, is that developing Void Zone is a whole new level of complexity in terms of the gameplay and the size of the project and everything involved with it. It is just bigger and more difficult. And so I have felt very conscious of not having the time that I wanted to devote to Void Zone's development because of the ongoing development in other areas. From a company perspective, we had to publish something else in the meantime, generate some cash flow, gain some traction before I felt we could actually publish Void Zone. Hence why we are publishing Lily Pads and Tessera in the meantime. So I'm probably answering my own question here, Robert, but has that felt challenging in that, to you've been working really hard on Void Zone all this time, and, I signed you on up to a contract, and, has it got as far as you wanted, I suppose?
Well, I'll say with some positives first. But I do really enjoy work. Like we did talk about this whenever we first signed up about working with maybe a publisher that was maybe less established than the likes of the bigger ones, and the benefits and drawbacks of that. And one thing I've really appreciated is the investment that you put into the game, and I can feel the enthusiasm you have for the game. So for me, that's been really good. As kind of similar to what James has said, if you had a game where you just give it to a publisher and then 6 months down the line you just get given it back and say, yeah, this is what we're doing. We're putting your name on this. And it may be something that you would not want your name put on at all.
Mm.
But I kind of felt throughout the whole process that I've been involved, that we've talked everything through, that I've been happy with every decision, and we've made decisions together. We've played things through together, and it's been really good in that respect. But and maybe the coronavirus in this has been maybe a bit of a blessing for us, because Void Zone is such a big project, and the kind of the ideas that's come out from the play testing and from your own group, Peter, with the gain in charge in the center and stuff, it's kind of need a wee bit more time to
Mm.
polish. And rather than, I've always been the opinion of it takes as long as it takes to get it right and to get it out, So that's been a real, and like it's good. It's been good for me for that, because, and like there is still more work to do on it,
Mm.
but I think we're 97% there or so.
Oh, we're probably in the
Yeah.
90s. Yeah, agreed.
So, but yeah, it did, and I'm fully aware these things do take time, and this is why there's like 2 years in the contract. Like just it takes so long to do these things. So I'm fully aware that the last thing I'd ever want to do is to rush something out
Mm.
onto market, and having a game that was broken or people didn't enjoy, or I just want, the big thing for me for making, and I'm obviously not in this to make a fortune, but
Probably wise.
the biggest thing for me is the enjoyment that I see people playing it.
Mm.
And even
Yeah.
from demoing the game and seeing people's faces, or not, or just hearing them online, and just those reactions is, oh, that was cool. I'd love, like, whenever you jump over someone else in Void Zone and then you can push them out, and
Mm.
or knocking someone out with two robots in one go. Like those experiences for me is what makes the 2 years worthwhile. And I don't know how long I've spent on working on it, but it's been thoroughly enjoyable. And as I say, it's kind of become a hobby for me. So
Mm.
but yeah, it's
Yeah.
and it's something too that I think yeah, it's just been good. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's kind of become a hobby. It. I consider designing now almost to be an extension of playing. Like it's a different sort of enjoyment. Don't get me wrong, but I still get enjoyment out of it. Purely from playing it with other people and other people enjoying it, and it's something that you've made, as you said. So if you're enjoying the process, it doesn't feel like work.
Mm.
In my head anyway. And I don't think I would have had that in the same way if you'd just taken it out of our hands and said, yep, okay, and then 6-12 months down the line you get something on the doorstep. You don't feel the ownership, you don't see the stages of development. It's been so exciting, to be frank. I mean, when Tranquility went on Kickstarter, and you've got this to look forward to, Robert. But when Tranquility went on Kickstarter, we had a very small party, just close family, and it went on at something like 10 o'clock at night, I think, and by midnight it had jumped to, I don't know, a couple of thousand, I think, and we were all absolutely besides ourselves. We were like, oh my god, it's good, we've got a couple of £1,000, and for the next 30 days, I just spent every single day refreshing it, like 5 times a day, just in pure like I was just ecstatic. It was so exciting, and I'd get texts from friends and stuff. Just and that feeling of seeing it from the very beginning, and when the artwork came through, and sending the artwork through to various people, and people coming back and going, "Oh, that looks amazing," and getting every update, I suppose, in the process is really exciting. I'm really looking forward to Void Zone hitting Kickstarter. But as you say, I think Peter's got a knack for, and I'll be controversial a little bit in that I almost find it frustrating as a designer because I go away and think, oh, I know there's a game here, but then it just encourages me to do better. Like, I'll go away for a week, I'll work on it, and I'll come back and think, God, he was right. This is so much better now than it was before. Trying to think of the example. Fabricate, which is what Tessera has now become. Well, what Tessera was before it was Tessera. Mick Wood and I don't. Just another shout out to Mick. Sat down and I had knocked up a game of what was then Fabricate, and we played it 2-player. And Mick went, yeah, you could, yeah, it's pretty much there. And I was over the moon because I just had this great idea. We just played it; it had just worked. And within sort of like an hour, Peter was sat next to me. So I was like, "Right, Peter, we've played it 3 times. I think you need to see this." And Peter's first comment was, "Yeah, the scoring's a bit fiddly." And I was like, "Right, okay, fine."
Was I
I'll
more
go away and
polite?
look on the scoring. So I'm sure you were, but that's what I heard. So I was like, right. So I worked out the scoring, and the scoring was fine, and I was like, definitely got something solid here. And then sort of like 2 days later, you were like, yeah, you know, I think it really would work if you turned it into a 3 to 4 player game. And I was like, but we've got this fantastic 2-player game. Let's just go with it. And then sort of like 2 days later, I'd sat down and play tested it, goodness knows how many times, and come up with a 3 to 4 player variant. And we sat back I was playtesting it with my family, and we went, yeah, think we've got this. And I took it back to Peter, and Peter was like, yeah, this works really well. And I remember thinking, yeah, you were perfectly right. It's taken me a couple of days to put together a really functional, really satisfying 3 to 4 player experience. So I think he's got a knack for bringing the best out of the game.
So
which
just
is,
to stop,
he usually sees further than I can in terms of its potential.
I don't know about that.
Sorry.
But just to stop you there, I also must credit, everybody who playtests, pretty much everybody finds something that can be improved or a new way of looking at it. And so, we had this 3 to 4 player version of Fabricate, and I was happy. But we realized it wasn't as tactical as the 2-player game. Just by definition, it was going to be more random. And it was Peter Measham from Bromsgrove Board Gamers who suddenly said, well, you just have a draw pile of 3 face up. When you draw back up your hand, you take from, you get 3 to look at. Oh, well, yeah, obviously. I mean, this isn't original. It's been done in Ticket to Ride and elsewhere, but it was the perfect combination. And it took somebody else looking at it and saying, well, is this a solution? Oh, yes, it is. So it is, yeah. So, I cannot take all the credit, and not by a long shot, as to, how the development works, but it is that organic process between the designer, the publisher, and all of the playtesters. Everybody who looks at it just keeps evolving the product until you finally hit that final version, and you're like, oh, wow, this is so much better than it was 2 months ago.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, this has been really fun. We're going to probably round off with, we have one more question from Richard, and it's, what is your vision for Board Game Hub 5 years from now? And that's a really interesting question. Again, I don't want to just speak to the camera myself for 5 minutes, because you guys are hopefully going to be heavily involved in this. I can't say exactly for 5 years from now. I do have a vision. Emma calls me a dreamer, and I am. I do think ahead a lot. I try, I stay in the moment, and it's really exciting what we're doing with lily pads and Tessera and Void Zone. But I'm always looking ahead, going, okay, this is what we're heading towards. This is what I want. So actually, what I don't see is, even in 10 or 15 years, I don't see Board Game Hub being, a majorly huge publishing house. I think that would take it from something. It wouldn't quite work with my vision for how I work, basically. But what I see it as being is a collaborative publisher, but also with some added activity. So I'll give another example. Another shout out is to the guys at Board Game Bud. and they have some of the exact same feelings and ethos about how they want to approach publishing, and also to do
Just
sort
excuse
of
me 30 seconds, Peter.
yeah, no worries, and to work around publishing as well. And so that's developing systems for play testing. That's doing things like their 5-minute design challenge. 5-minute design challenge? 10-minute, maybe. It's getting more people involved in publishing and designing. So I see a company that is still small in 5 years, I suppose, but has hopefully James on board as a director, or at least certainly heavily involved in the company, not just working with me. I see other people doing visual and finance stuff. So I am no businessman. I am not a finance guy. If anything, I'm a creative person. So I want to have those. I want to have those people around me who make up for my deficiencies. And so, we've got James, who I can see not only designing games with me forever, but also developing other games.
I hope to heck I've got enough ideas to keep designing it forever.
You don't seem short of ideas. That might be a problem, is the opposite, actually.
Well,
I see us setting up base in Bristol. And what I'm hoping is that with the sort of something like Bristol that has a really healthy gaming scene, it's getting regular events, it's having open playtest sessions people can just turn up to play our games, it's getting involved more with the local game shops, running events in their shops, and getting to the point where we're publishing a selection of different kinds of titles per year, not for the purpose of generating income, although of course we'll need to, but for the purpose of creating great products, and and working in these collaborations with a bunch of people inside the company and outside of the company. That's my hope.
oh, I've lost your sound there, Peter.
Oh, I'm all done.
All right, okay. Maybe your video catching up.
So yeah, that's kind of where my thinking is. I think
Good
there are
answer.
benefits to having a physical location. Obviously, at the moment, I have a little home office, and that's lovely, and I do enjoy working at home. But yes, it's taking to the company to a point where it is more professional. We are on a sound financial footing. We're able to fully develop ideas, to run events and have people coming in. I think that's what I want, is a very open and involved community around Board Game Hub, and if it is Bristol, around that area.
Yeah, I think one of the things in the front of the Board Game Hub website originally was the home of indie games. And I think you being able to take first-time designers, and there's people waiting for Tranquility demos. Well, I'm saying Tranquility, I'm assuming Tranquility, because there's one in the Tranquility demos voice channel.
Is there indeed?
But anyway, so what was I saying? Yeah, you being able to take first-time designers and develop their games and turn them into published designers. And as you said, networking with the local groups and the local game stores and building it from the ground upwards, I guess is what I'm saying, which I think is a very good way to start, sort of like an indie scene, in independent game producers and publishers.
Yeah. Do you have anything to say on
I
that?
don't know whether I made that point well. I kind of. But yeah, that's building it from the ground up is what I'm saying. Creating that network of people that you're going to collaborate with and work with and develop with, and spreading that net sort of like wider is I think would definitely succeed at that sort of mission that you've always had, or Board Game Hub has always had, to kind of be a place for indie games.
Yes, and absolutely, and Board Game Hub, I mean, hence the name of it, was designed first and foremost to be a sort of a hub for other indie publishers, and our publishing has come out of that, and it is meaning a slight reimagining of that mission. we're not going to be able to do what the original business model was, which was promoting and retailing direct from our site. It may be viable, but not for a one-man team, really. So it's reimagining that collaboration and how can we work with other indie publishers, and work together so we all benefit. And there's all sorts of things like playtesting each other's games, proofreading rule books, and just meeting to chat on Zoom or in person if you can, and just to discuss ideas. The more people you've got to talk, then the best.
You've said it better than I did there.
All right, awesome. Yes, I think we better go because we have eager beavers wanting more demos.
More demos, yeah. Cool.
Brilliant. Thank you both very much. That's been good fun. Yeah, maybe we'll have another of these when we've got other things to discuss. Hopefully, more board games either on Kickstarter or have been on Kickstarter. And fantastic. And thank you to all our viewers, either live or catching up after the event. And thank you for the questions as well.
Cool.
All right. Cheers, guys.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.